So it's not just, hey, I like literature, Carlos likes literature. I like Chinese, Carlos likes Chinese. It's giving someone advice. I think you should take Chinese because I like Chinese, Carlos likes Chinese, and I've heard, or it seems like, the Chinese teacher is really nice. I don't think you should take physics though because I don't like physics and I heard that the teacher was really strict. That's completing the task. Welcome to our Classroom Connection series, where we give you an inside look of how our extempore assessments connect to what's going on in the classroom, whether from the beginning of class, middle class, or the end of class, or anywhere else in between. In this first connection, I'll give you a look on how I took a practice activity, connected it to the next day's warm-up, did a comprehension check of that warm-up, and then used what students comprehended based on the warm-up and the homework activity to follow up on extempore with an oral response. Now, I'll be honest here, I'm getting a little bit vulnerable because I'm sharing some of my own previously used materials in my Chinese classes, but I feel that they're worth sharing because of the ways that I showed them to get my students to get extra practice and meaningful repetition of the target language vocabulary, while also getting increased exposure to the target vocabulary and the phrases and structures that I wanted them to use in class. The goal of this unit was for students to talk about their classes and their teachers. As such, we'd already learned some words to talk about our teachers, including 善良, nice, 幽默, funny, 严肃, strict, and 凶, mean or intimidating. So after the class that we learned those words, we took them and had my students answer a couple of comprehension questions shaped around a task. So you can see here in the directions, I've already enlightened Bai Ping and Xiaoming about choosing classes, but they have even more questions about those teachers. Help them understand what the classes are like and what the teachers are like by answering a few questions. So the first thing they did was at the end of class the previous day, the students answered these questions. They wrote out their responses. You can see here that I also have some handy starter phrases like this is why, it seems like, what I mean is, and I forgot to tell you. And they use those transcend any thematic unit that you have. They can apply to any unit, whether it's entertainment, music, food, arts, school, growing up, whatever you have, those can always apply. They're not stuck to one content area. And so once students answer these questions, they came back the next day and they would get a little review sheet as well, which you can see I printed out right here. And so what they did was the students would take those responses that they wrote earlier, this sheet, and then they would come back the next day and they would get the comprehension sheet and they would trade the comprehension questions with a partner. And so what they did was they would have this comprehension sheet, this interpretive sheet, where they would look at their partner's responses. Well, they would first look at their own responses, make sure they understood what they wrote, and circle the smiley face just to keep it simple, right? Good or bad, like or dislike. Circle the smiley face based on what they wrote to show that they're understanding their own writing. Once they've traded, they can put their partner's name in the lower box, and they would answer the same questions based on what their partner wrote, showing their interpretive comprehension. So you can see here, I already circled what I have. I like literature, I like Chinese, I like the teachers. Carlos likes literature and Chinese, he likes physics, I don't like physics, we have different teachers. This is what the student would have. How then did they follow up on extempore? Well, after I go around the classroom, I as the teacher, I go around the classroom, I see how my students are doing. I say, okay, hey, it looks like you're understanding what you wrote and what your partner wrote. Nicely done. The student then goes to extempore and they see this follow-up question. You'll see this here in Chinese, tell Xiaoming about what you discussed with your partner in regards to classes and teachers at our school. So the student then is holding this sheet of paper, and saying on extempore what they interpreted based on what they read and what they have right in front of them. You'll notice there's no target language. This is all in English. There's no target language for students to just parrot back on extempore. They have to show, oh, I understand what this is saying and I can produce that language in Chinese. But it's not just that. There's also a task that goes with this. Finally, give Xiaoming one piece of advice about coming to our school. Your goal should be to speak at least 30 to 45 seconds. So it's not just, hey, I like literature, Carlos likes literature. I like Chinese, Carlos likes Chinese. It's giving someone advice. I think you should take Chinese because I like Chinese, Carlos likes Chinese, and I've heard, or it seems like, the Chinese teacher is really nice. I don't think you should take physics though because I don't like physics and I heard that the teacher was really strict. That's completing the task. That's how they're using what they interpreted from the previous activity and following up with it on extempore. They're using information that they acquired based on reading it in the target language, and they're saying it back in the target language on extempore without referencing what they already read because they interpreted it here. A lot going on, but you'll notice, last thing, I have some extra scaffolding here. We have these function words. I forgot to tell you what I mean is, it seems like, and this is why. Again, students don't have to use those. They're totally just to support them if they need them. And then some filler words as well if they wanted to include them in their speech. Student doesn't have to, but they are there for their use if they want them. That's it for this first classroom connection. Let's recap what just happened. First, students answered a few basic questions to practice target language vocabulary. Then they came to class the next day and shared those responses with a partner, circling smiley faces and frowny faces to show what students liked and what students didn't like. Finally, they took those responses on that half sheet of paper and answered a couple questions on Extempore and completed a task by showing what they interpreted from this and using what they could produce in the target language. Hope you enjoyed this first classroom connection. Let me know how you would use this type of activity in your classroom, how you might have used it already. Be sure to leave a comment below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more of our content. We will see you in the next one. Take care.